Hi.
Greetings. On page 183 of the Proclaimer's book, they
Mm-hmm.
have a very short subhead, Respect for Life. And when I stared at it, I thought, well, that's unusual to have a short subhead like that. And then followed by a very long subhead. What's the next one? Well, why blood transfusions are refused.
Mm.
So I think we can speculate quite intelligently as to why they devote so little space to the principle of respect for life and then so much space to their peculiarity, their distinctive doctrine of blood transfusions.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But first, let's read the two paragraphs they devote to respect for life and see what that's about.
Such respect is rooted in recognition of the fact that life is a gift from God. It includes a realization that even the life of the unborn is precious in the eyes of God. It takes into account that each of us will render an account for himself to God. In line with these Bible principles, Jehovah's Witnesses have consistently shunned the practice of abortion. To provide sound direction to its readers, Awake magazine has helped them to appreciate that chastity is a divine requirement. It has discussed at length the marvels of the procreative process as well as the psychology and psychological and physiological factors involved in childbirth. In the post World War II era, as abortions became more commonplace, the Watchtower showed clearly that this practice is contrary to the Word of God. Mincing no words, the issue of December 15, 1969 said, "Abortion simply to get rid of an unwanted child is the same as willfully taking a human life."
Well, I applaud their being pro-life in this one aspect, but of course they're not consistently pro-life.
Yeah,
And that's probably the reason that we could speculate that they give so much little space to this, because they know, compared to, let's say, the Protestants, the militant Protestants of North America, or the Catholic Church,
mm-hmm.
they are not consistently pro-life,
Yeah,
because at least a loyal Catholic knows that his church teaches that to be pro-life means to be pro-creation. That
mm-hmm.
is, you would not be into birth control. You wouldn't be into abortion, but you
Yeah.
certainly wouldn't be into birth control
That's
either.
right. So really, they are anti-abortion, but they're not procreation.
Yeah.
And we're not. They make mention of people who are unmarried, but why is it that married Jehovah's Witnesses were unhappy when they were having children? Many of them were, because they believed what the Watchtower said. It's not the right time to have children, so you don't have children. Uh, and yes, I know people are going to say, well, they didn't demand it of you, but they certainly kept on telling you how inappropriate it is. So it's not a surprise that anyone who was a sincere witness and took it seriously didn't have children.
We know lots of people, even when we were pioneers, by the way, when I
Mm-hmm.
was still in my 20s, we met couples then that had taken seriously the counsel that they had received at least since the 1930s. And Rutherford's very last book, Children,
Mm-hmm.
is the famous, infamous narrative of John and Eunice, who are supposed to put off getting married even
Yeah, and having
until
children.
Armageddon is over, and that's 1940, 41.
Mm-hmm.
Then you realize people who took that seriously, loyal
Yeah.
witnesses, and we met some of them, did not have children, and therefore, of course, didn't have grandchildren and lived to regret it.
Yeah.
This is in the
And we're
1970s.
living their old age struggling, really, because they only had each other, and or they were on their own and they had no one to take care of them.
Yes.
And so they had regrets. And we're meeting people who have left the witnesses recently, and they're in their 60s and 70s, and they had no children. And they now have regrets because they realize that window of time that they could have had children, they didn't have them because they believed what the Watchtower told them.
So their sin, really, their sin against themselves,
Yeah, is
is
taking it
is
seriously.
taking the Watchtower seriously for 5 generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yes, they have regrets now, but it's too late to do anything about it now. That they found out that the claims of the organization are bogus.
And then when they do get pregnant, some of these married witnesses, pioneers, I remember them being so upset and sad that they were having children. Well, that's not pro-life. That's
No, that
that's loyalty to the organization trumps everything, even having your own children.
When you realize that the biblical attitude is exemplified, for instance, by virtually every mother in the Old Testament, is the best gift that God has given to humans, not to mention female humans.
Mm-hmm.
The best gift he's given to all of us is the gift of having children and sharing in the creation project.
Yeah.
But that's not the attitude that was engendered among Jehovah's Witnesses when I was a loyal pioneer. I mean, we didn't have children until we left.
That's right. And then it was difficult, I think, because we were older, and we only had one. So that can be repeated, I don't know how many hundreds of times or thousands of times with witnesses.
Let's make it hundreds of thousands of times. That of loyal witnesses, and the ones who are the most loyal tend to suffer the most from this.
We did have a story years after we had been out of the organization. We got somebody tracked me down at my workplace and said that he remembers me and David regularly because he had been studying with the witnesses, and we had been down at one of the conventions holding up signs, including one about John and Eunice.
Happy anniversary, John and Eunice. 40-something years living with your parents.
Yeah. So he was curious about this sign. What did it mean? Like, he just didn't get it. And it had a reference to the book Children and a page. So he came over and talked to us, and he was just studying seriously with the witnesses. He was thinking of becoming a witness. And so we told him what it was about, and he went and looked it up, at the Kingdom Hall he was attending.
The children reference was on the sign, right?
This is the page. Yeah. So he went and he started reading the book, of course, and finding out what the whole premise was, and it decided him against becoming a Jehovah's Witness, because he was quite shocked that they would have been saying this. And he said, of course, if he had become a witness, he wrote me an email note saying if he had become a witness, he likely would have pioneered and not had children.
He would have believed it.
Yes, he would have taken it seriously. So he said because he didn't become a witness, he just wanted to let us know how grateful he was to us, because he was married to a lovely Christian woman, and they had 3 lovely children. And he said they might not be here if it hadn't been for that sign, that one sign that got him to realize the kind of demands that the organization puts on people through what they're saying. It might not be a direct, you must not, but it's a heavy-handed pressure on people
relents.
who take it seriously.
Yeah. And I bet that made your day.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a wonderful note to get.
But to take away God's supreme gift of children from any generation is a sin against human beings, but it's also a sin against God. After all, the very first commandment is be fruitful and multiply, and it's never been rescinded or lifted from us as a responsibility of our humanity.
You're playing God.
Yeah.
So this is something that I had not thought about as a witness at all, but, after becoming a Christian and thinking about it, I started to realize we're just taking advantage of the time we live in, the technology we live in, and we're suppressing or trying to make our own choices when it comes to children, which are a gift from God.
God's supreme gift.
That's playing God.
Yeah, our participation in the creation itself.
Mm-hmm.
What's our link?
We're linking to a video called Rutherford's Children and the New Date doctrine of 1972.
Edmund Gruss, in one of his books, makes the point that it's probably not a coincidence that they changed the date of the expiration of 6,000 years right after Rutherford's death, and the date was changed from, of course, the 1870s, which it had been through the entire history of the Watchtower to that point, up into the 1970s. They fixed a new date, actually. It was originally 1972. So check this out to see the connection between Rutherford's last book, Children, John and Eunice, and the change of the date, which, of course, set up those people that we met back in the 1970s who took Rutherford seriously and never had children.
Yeah.
And lived to be embittered on that count
Or,
into their
to have
old age.
regrets and to suffer loneliness and lack of help in their old age.
And we couldn't say anything, could we, as young pioneers? We couldn't defend the Watchtower because we knew it was strange.
And when you're young, you're not thinking about what it's like to be old, and what it's like to not have anyone that you can call on.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't our experience. So we didn't show understanding. But I think now we can understand how precious it is to have a child.
All those people we are now meeting through the channel who have these regrets, they're 50 years on. They were all teenagers when we met those folks who had taken J.F. Rutherford seriously.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.